to the class, the first thing you need to do is you need to go to A plus students.com. You need to go to this website. You need to select your subject as math. Okay. Then you need to select your grade level. A grade is grade 8s. The topic for today is data and graph. Data and graph. And let's look at the chapter number. The chapter number is 24. Number is 24. And the lesson number is lesson number 10. Lesson number 10. Okay. And the name of the lesson is Interpret Histograms. Interpret histograms. Let's see what histograms are. Okay, we are looking at histograms today. Histogram is basically a representation of data in which you have multiple bars. Once we open the question, we'll have a better look. So let's go to grade 8 maths. Grade 8. We are in maths. And the chapter number 24, that is data and graph. And the lesson number is lesson number 10, okay? So I'll just give you an example. We'll do a few examples, then let's see, okay, what we can understand from a histogram, okay? So the first question we have is this, okay? So the question number 1 shows us a food magazine published a listing of local restaurant ratings over here, okay? On the y-axis, it says number of reservations. Oh, sorry, number of restaurants, okay? And x-axis has the ratings on it. This is number of ratings, restaurants, and this is the rating, okay? So how many restaurants were rated in the total, okay? So what we need to see is the total number of restaurants, right? The first thing we need to do is we need to find how many total exactly are there. There are 2 ways of doing it, right? What we can do is we can make a grid. We can say the ratings, okay, and the number of restaurants. These are the requirements. The rating was between 0 and 4, right? Between 0 and 4 rating, how many restaurants were there? There were 2 restaurants, right? Similarly, between 5 and 9, the rating given to between 5 and 9, there were 9 restaurants. There were 9 restaurants which were given a rating between 5 and 9. The next one is 10 and 14. The rating between 10 and 14 was given again to 2 restaurants, right? Moving ahead, 15 and 19. The rating between 15 and 19 was given to 4 restaurants. Okay. Between 20 and 24, there were no restaurants which were given a rating between 20 and 24, so we write a 0. Moving ahead, 25 to 29. How many restaurants were given a rating? 4 restaurants were given a rating, okay? Then we have 30 to 34. How many restaurants? 5 restaurants were given a rating between this. And for the last one, 35 to 39. How many restaurants? There were 10 restaurants, right? So we can always draw them on a grid, okay? And what we can do is we can put separators over here that would show us, that would show clearly. We have to draw a grid when we are assessing the data. So this is just a rough sketch, okay? And this would be this, okay? So through this from this diagram, what we did was we draw a grid. And by studying the grid, we can find the number of restaurants per the ratings, right? So the original question was they were asking us how many restaurants were rated in altogether, right? So since in this column it says the number of restaurants, right? So can we count the number of restaurants as a total? We can say 2 plus 9, 11. 11 plus 2 is 13. 13 plus 4 is 17. Plus 0, 17. 17 plus 4 is 21. Plus 5 is 26 and 36, right? So that means the total number of restaurants over here would be 36 because we are adding the total number of restaurants. That means how many restaurants were rated? 36 restaurants were rated, right? Or categorized, were given score. So a bar graph, the bar graph or histogram gets its name from the bars it has, right? So the bars will define us the number of quantity. It gives us the quantity, or if it gives us the frequency. Okay. So number of restaurants is can also be known as frequency. Frequency means the repetition. Okay. We look at the repetition, how many times anything is repeated. Okay. Moving back to the next question. Let's see the next question we have. The next question says a crayon factory is there. Crayon factory. I'll just copy it on the screen. Okay, this is question number 2 we have. I'll just move ahead. Okay, I'll make a separator in the middle so that we do not mix the questions. This is question number 2. A crayon factory monitored the number of broken crayons per box. Broken crayons per box during the past day, right? What we need to find is, we need to find how many boxes had between 0 and 9 broken crayons, right? So all we need to do is, we need to look at the graph and see, we need to find between 0 and 9 broken. This is the number of broken crayons over here, right? So let's try to find where is 0 to 9. This is 0 to 9. And what does this grid represent? What is the maximum value of this grid? 0 to 9, 5, right? So we can say that 5 boxes had between 0 and 9 broken crayons. Okay, so this is very simple, right? All we need to do is we need to look at the question and what they're asking us. Depending on the requirement of the question, we will read the statement. Okay, so let's just put it over here. Okay, let's move on with the next question. That is question number 3. I'll just copy the question number 3. Any questions up till now? Do we have any questions? Since in this question, question number 2, they were telling about the broken crayons, right? On the x-axis, the horizontal axis, it said broken crayons. So we need to find between 0 and 9. We just simply find 0 and 9. We found it over here and we find the value. That means 5 boxes had between 0 and 9 broken, right? Moving on ahead to the next question. I'll just copy it on the screen. Okay. Let's see what are they asking us in the next question. The next question states, the next question states this statement. Let's enlarge this. Let's put it down. Let's put it, just a minute, please. I'll just arrange the data so that we have more space to read. Okay. So the question number 3 says, Miss Bryant ran a sit-up competition among her PE students, monitored how many sit-ups each student could do. So she is looking at how many sit-ups would each student be able to perform, right? So let's look at the grid and let's see what are the labelings on the x-axis and the y-axis, right? The labelings are very important. On the x-axis, it says number of sit-ups, and this is number of students, number of pupils or the students in the class. Agreed? So students doing a sit-up between 0 and 9. There were no students, right? None. Everyone did more than 9, right? So let's look at the question. Are there more people who did 20 to 29 sit-ups, or people who did 30 to 39 sit-ups, right? So what we need to do is we need to look at both the boxes, columns over here, both the bars. These are known as the bar. So for 20 to 29, this is the bar, right? So how many students were there in this bar? There were 4 students. Agreed? What about 30 to 39? How many were there in 30 to 39? In 30 to 39, there's no bar, right? So there were no students, none of the students, right? So who did more? Which which set of students did more push-ups? That means from 20 to 29, 20, all right, 20 to 29, right? Sit-ups were done by more students. Done by more students. But in this case, since 30 to 39 was a 0, so we have no problem. But if it was compared to 40 to 49, then we will compare the value. This would be 4, that would be 3, 40 to 49, right? Then we have to compare, right? Since the bar of the range 20 to 29 is taller, that means the 20 to 29 has more values to it. Okay, are there any questions? Kindly let me know if there is any question, if there is anything that's not been understood. I'll pause there and I'll explain that first. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next question. It says, question number 4. And it says, in question number 4, Lateral counted the number of articles in several different magazines, right? So it's about the articles. Let's see. First, we need to see what is on the horizontal axis. Horizontal axis represents the number of articles. The vertical axis represents the number of magazines, okay? So the question we have is, it's asking us which range of articles per magazine is the least common. We have to find the minimal, okay? Least common would mean we have to find the minimum value. Okay, so we need to look for the shortest bar. We can directly do this answer. Okay, let's add a few parts to this. Okay, this is part A. Let's add another part. Which range of articles per magazine? The slash refers to per, right? Per year, per magazine is the most common, right? So in part A, they're asking us for the least common. If they're asking us for the least common, let's look at the smallest bar over here. This looks small. That would be 3, right? Do we have anything other less than 3? Yes, we do. We look at this value. It's smaller than 3, right? This was 3, but this was 2. Agreed? So what we can say is, the least common articles range was 31 to 35 articles, right? Mostly they had less than 31 to 35. 31 to 35 is the least, and mostly they had more than 31 to 35 articles, right? So if we say, we look at part B, We want to see which range of articles in the magazine is the most common. What is the maximum number of repeated articles, right? Or number of articles. So we look at, whenever we need to find the most, we look at the highest, okay? Highest range. These are the two top grids, right? This grid would be 6, and but this grid was 8. So which would have the highest range? 26 to 30 articles was the most common in the magazine. Like most of the magazine had 26, between 26 and 30 articles. Okay. So depending on the question, depending on the requirement, we study the grid, right? And this grid is known as a bar graph. So we study the bar graph depending on our requirement. Moving ahead with the next question, question number 5. I'll just copy paste the question number 5. Just a minute, please. A pottery factory. It's a pottery factory. This would be question number 5. I'll just realign it. Okay. So let's see if this is realigned. This is question number 5. Okay. Okay. The next question says, let's realign this. Our shipments between. I'll just change the size so that it's readable. Okay. A pottery factory kept track of the number of broken plates per shipment, right? A factory is making plates and different crockery. Some of the plates do get broken, right? So the first thing we do is we look at the axis. The number of broken plates is on the x-axis, and the number of shipments is on the y-axis, that is the vertical axis, okay? The question is asking, are there fewer shipments that had 5 to 9 plates, or are there shipments with 25 to 29? So which out of these two shipments will have lesser broken plates, right? So let's look at 5 to 9. If we look at 5 to 9, the average number of shipments would be 5 to 9 broken plates. The average shipment would be 7 over here, right? This is 7. How about 25 to 29? If we look at 25 to 29, we know that this is 25 to 29. This bar represents, what is the value for 25 to 29? This was 6, right? So which one had fewer shipments with the broken? Right? The question is the reverse. They're not asking us to find the maximum value. They are asking us about the fewer shipments, right? So we can say 25 to 29 broken plates had fewer shipments, right? Compared to 5 to 9 broken plates, because we are just comparing this and these two quantities, right? So between these two quantities, 25 to 29 had lesser number of broken plates, right? Lesser number of shipments. Okay. Agreed? Any questions up till now? If there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. Okay. Please feel free to ask the question. I'll just copy the next question. It's again about restaurant and the menus. Okay. For the next question, question number 6. The question is something like this. Okay. If this is question number 6, okay. A food critic counted the number of menu items, right? How many things are being offered? Menu items are these. That means from 1 to 10, they were offering 9 menu items. From 11 to 12, 11 to 20, they were offering 3. 21 to 30, they were offering 7, right? And so on. On the y-axis, we have the number of restaurants over here. Okay, so the question says, how many restaurants are there in all? What is the total number of restaurants? How can we find the total number of restaurants? See, first part, from 1 to 10, number of menu items. From 1 to 10 menu items were offered by how many restaurants? This was offered by 9 restaurants, right? 11 to 20 things on their menu were offered by how many restaurants? What we can do is either we can make the grid or we can write down the values on the grid on the table. We can even write the values over here, or we can make a separate grid on the side. This is much more convenient because we are not doing excess work. The next one would be 7. This is 3. This is 4. This was 8. This is 3 again. This is a 0. This would be 7. And this was 1. So can we add them because they are showing us the number of restaurants, because y-axis represents the number of restaurants. So can we add 9 plus 3 is 12 plus 7 19 plus 3 22 plus 4 26 plus 8 32 35 40 35 42 and 43, right? Do we agree? I just did a random. Should it be 43? Let's count it again. This would be, I'll just count it again, right? 10, 19, 22, 26, 34, 44, 45. Sorry. That is, the total is 45 restaurants were there in all together, right? So we can simply count them on the grid, or we can do some excess work and we can make the boxes and we can just copy down all the values, right? See what they can, I'll just show you an example what can be done and how we can make our life simple. Either we do this work or we do this. I'll just copy the grid for your convenience so that we would save our time, and if you have enough time then you can also draw this grid and then try to find the answers. So whichever that is convenient for you. Whatever working that we did over here is already done on the grid. This we can simply write down the values over here. So we do not have to draw the grid, right? We can label the bars also on the histogram. Okay, I would recommend that you label them on the histogram for now. Okay, moving ahead to the next question. The next question is question number 7. Do we have any questions regarding this? Please do ask. Okay, because once we will be doing the quiz, I would expect you people to answer. Okay, so for the question 7, it says, this is given to us. This is question number 7. The Newbury Chamber of Commerce researched the number of employees working at local companies, right? So this must be the labelings: number of employees, number of companies. These are the two labelings for us. Okay, what they are saying is how many companies have between 10 and 19 employees. Okay, they're telling us how many companies would have between 10 and 19. So what we need to do is, how can we find between 10 and 19? We go to the bar that shows 10 and 19, because the term over here is used as employees. X-axis is employees. We look for the bar that says 10 and 19. We go to this bar. You don't have to make a bar on it. I'm just doing it to highlight it for you. So what is the answer for 10 and 19? There were 7 employees. right? So your answer would be simple, and your answer would be, there were 7 companies which had between 10 to 19 employees, right? Agreed? Okay, moving on ahead with the next question. Just a minute, please. Let me just save some space. Okay, we'll try to save as much space as we can. Okay, so that it stays on your screen. The next question we have is question number 8. And the question number 8 tells us, okay, we're writing paper and the committee is there. Let's see, what does this question ask us? Okay, so let's maximize this for the space. This is our question number 8. Okay, and they are saying, while writing a paper on marking decisions in gross, Mark researched making decision. Mark research the size of the number of committees, right? We need to look at how many committees are there, or how much is the size, how many members are there in each committee. We look at what is on the x-axis, that is the number of members. On the y-axis is the number of committees there are. So between 0 to 9, there would be how many committees members. 10 to 11, 10 to 19 members would have these many committees, and so on, right? Which range has the most? Whenever the term most is used, right? So we look at the biggest bar. So what is the biggest bar in this case? So the biggest bar would be between, see, we have a competition between a few of them, right? Let's see what can be the answer. This is tall, right? This can be tall. Agreed? Or this is there, right? Or this seems to be the tallest, right? So we always go for the tallest. We do not have to find the smaller values, right? This would be 6, this would be 6, this was 6, but this is 7, right? So we can directly find the answer by looking at the biggest bar or biggest line, biggest space that is shaded. So what should be the answer? What should be the answer? See, the answer should be, what is the range? 60 to 69 members had the most committees. Has most committees. Right? WES, sorry. They had most number of committees on that. So always, and for the minimum would be 0 to 9. Right? Having 0 to 9 members were only 2 committees, right? That means the least number of committees were having 0 to 9 members. So depending on the question, we look at the bar. When it is the biggest or the maximum, we go with the highest bar. When it is the minimum, we go with the lowest bar. Agreed? Any questions? Okay, because there must be something, sometimes there might be something that could be confusing. That's why I'm saying, if there is any question, please do not hesitate to ask. Okay, we move on to the next question, that is question number 9. Okay, we do question number 9. Just a minute, please. I'll just bring it down. The question says, the advertising agency counted the number of billboards in each area, right? This was question number 9. And they are saying how many cities are there in total. Okay, we need to find the total number of cities. What we can do is we can either make the grid and find respective, right? What we do is, let's see what is here, the number of billboards and the number of cities, right? So if we are looking at this, can we say that there were 0 to 4 cities which had one billboard, right? There were 5 to 9 cities which had 5 to 9 billboards were governed by 8 cities, right? 10 to 14 billboards were owned by how many cities? 2 cities, and so on, right? So can we find the values? Because the question wants to ask us in all the total number of cities that are there. Okay, and since the number of cities is on the y-axis, so we need number of cities on the y-axis. That means the height always represents the cities, right? So we try to find the total number of cities. This would be how much? This would be 7. The next one is 8. You don't have to highlight the borders. I'm just doing it so that it's understandable for us. This would be 3. Then this is 5. This is 4. And this is 2, right? I'll just label this. This would be 5, 4, and 2. So can we add all these numbers together? Can anyone give me an answer? What is the total? If we add 1 plus 8 plus 2 plus 7 and so on, what should be the total? That would be 1 plus 8 plus 2 plus 7 plus 8 plus 3 plus 5 plus 4 plus 2, right? 9. 9 plus 11, 19, 26, 29, 29, 34, 38, and 40. That means there are 40 cities in total that are being considered for the billboards, right? The survey was done for 40 cities. Agreed? So let's have a look at another question. Okay, so the next question, it says, Heather found out the sizes of all clubs at her school. In a school, there are multiple clubs and there are multiple members, right? N number of members. Every club can have a different number of members. So this would be question number 10. Okay. What is represented on the x-axis? The number of members. On y is represented by the number of clubs. Okay. Number of members and number of clubs. Okay. So let's see. The question they're asking us is, how many clubs have between 41 and 45 members? So what they're asking us a specific value. They're not asking us the total right now. Okay. So for the specific, we go to the specific. Let's see where we can find 41, 45. Yes. And we make the box. Just highlight it. Let's see. It had 4. Agreed. So how many clubs have between 3 clubs? Right? Three clubs had between 41 and 45, right? So if I would add another statement, another part to this question, how many clubs are there in total? Right? This is a very common question. They can ask us the total value, right? So can we say the first grid had 2 clubs, right? The second had how many clubs? It had 4 clubs. 6 to 10 members were 4 clubs, right? Then another set. So we can find the values on the grid for each of these clubs, right? We can do a separate grid also, but doing a separate grid would consume a lot of time, right? And during that examination, even in the class, we have a very limited time. So we would prefer using the time, right? You don't have to make these grids, highlight them. I just did those so that we can understand. This would be 4. This was 2, 3, 5. The height is 5. The height is 3. The height is 5 and the height is 5. Can we add all the numbers together? Can we say 2 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4, right? Okay, the common mistake what happens over here is that we might skip, as a human error, we might skip a number. So best way is to count the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So always count the number of values which you have written down so that we do not make the human error. So let's count the numbers. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. 16, 19, 29, and 33. Okay, so there would be 33 clubs in the total, right? Agreed? Okay, let's try some questions from the test, okay? Oh, sorry. This was supposed to be, see, writing error. This was 4. That was 4 clubs, okay? Sorry, apologies for that. Let's start the test. We wrote a 4 and I just copied a different number, okay? Apologies. And if you see this thing, please let me know. I can also do a writing human error, right? So the next question we have is having 2 options as the answer. This is the first question from the test. Okay, let's consider the test. And this is question number 1. What they're asking us is to find an employee at the craft store counted the number of red buttons in each bag of mixed buttons, right? They're counting the red buttons in a bag of each buttons, right? So number of red buttons, number of bags. They had 0 to 9 red buttons in 2 bags, 10 to 19 red buttons in 5 bags, and so on, right? So what can we do? Can we try to find the answer? Option A or option B? Can anyone help me out? This question is for you people, right? Since it's a test, I would want you to answer. Which range of red buttons per bag occurred least frequently, right? Whenever we have to look at the word least over here. Least, okay, I'll give you the reverse of that. When we did a question which had most, so whenever something was most, we look at the highest bar. So in case of the least, we should be looking at the opposite of that, right? Can you give me the answer? Can I have the answer, Job? Michael, what should be the answer? What is the least? Least would always refer to the smallest bar or the smallest grid, right? Yes, correct. The smallest grid is at 40 to 49, right? Because this has the value of 1. If we compare, this was 2, this was 2, right? We are looking at the smallest all value. But the least value was between at 40 to 49. That means option B is the correct answer. Yes, thank you for the answer. 40 to 49, that's the correct answer. Moving on ahead with the next question. Okay, it's about a similar question that we did. Okay, So the question number 2 on the test would be, these are the given, okay? Let's see if, okay, this is our question number 2 from the test. I'll just move it on the side. Okay, what they are asking us is, find this. Lateral counted the number of articles in several different magazines. This is the number of articles. This is the number of magazines. This is option A and option B. Least common. We just did a question which had the least, right? The previous question. And what did we do in least? I can recall, I can tell you what we can do with the maximum. If this question number 2 would have been the maximum, we will go for the highest value, highest bar. What about the least? Least should be, can anyone answer? The least, yes, the least should be, thank you. The least should be the smallest bar. This looks small and this looks small. Let's see which one of them are smallest, right? This would be 3 and this was 2. Agreed. That means this is the smallest, right? So that is between 31 and 35. Yes, so true. That means option B is the correct option. So we click on 31 to 35. I hope you're doing the test along with me, right? Because the same questions, you'll have it on your screen. Okay, when you're doing the test, we would have the same questions, okay? For the next one, let's see what we can do over here. The question number 3. In question number 3, what they're asking us is, the employees at Josh Construction monitor the number of cracked windows panes in each shipment they received, right? So we are looking at number of cracked window panes. So the information is given to us. Let's see if this information, okay. And the question is asking, are there, fewer shipments, okay? Are there fewer shipments that had 0 to 4 cracked windows, or the shipments had 10 to 14 cracked windows, right? So we need to see which one had fewer. So let's go over here, 0 to 4, right? We pick the grid, we select for 0 to 4 and 10 to 14. Whenever we are looking for more, we go for the higher grid, right? How about fewer? What should we be looking at? Which of these two grids, which I highlighted in red, have the fewer, right? Yes, thank you. This was 4 and this was 1. That means 1 is less than 4. That means 10 to 14, right? 10 to 14 had fewer. Agreed? Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Option B. Let's try another question. Question number 4. Okay, let's see if I would let you answer this. And question number 4 states that, I'll just enlarge this. The question number 4 from the test states that we have these two options, option A and option B. While writing a paper on making decisions, mark research the size of number of committees. The values have been changed for this question. Okay. What is the most, which range has the most committees, right? Okay, we are looking at the maximum number of committees over here. So whenever we know the keyword over here is most. Which range has the most, right? This is our keyword, most. And most would always refer to, what would it refer to? The highest, right? What should be the highest over here? Is 70 to 79 highest or 60 to 69 highest, right? We look at the grid, right? We look at the bar with the highest or the bar highest will be our requirement, right? Because they are asking for the most. Okay, they're not asking us to compare, they're asking for the most. So can we say this was 6, this was 6, this was 6, but this was 7, right? That means 60 to 69. That is option number B. Yes, thank you. So 60 to 69 had the maximum number, right? Most committees on it. The most committees was 7, and which had 60 to 69 members on it. Okay. So the remaining questions, right? Please do complete the remaining questions. We are done with around 20-25% of the test, right? Very similar, very easy. Complete the test, and best of luck, and thank you for being there. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye.